Okay, good afternoon. How is everyone today? Are we all good? It's amazing to be here. We're all here today because Mastercard, who have sponsored the Brits for 27 years, have launched an outreach programme called Mic Drop Talks. The programme is travelling across the UK to visit schools like yours, and we're speaking to students about all the different career paths that are available in the creative industries. But before we dive into all that, we've got a very special treat for you. Young Athena, who went to the Brit School, is now here to perform 2 of her songs. So bring your hands together and give a huge round of applause for the amazing Young Athena. Okay, that was amazing. Can everyone please give it up for Young Athena one more time, please? So welcome, Jonathan. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to follow Young Athena's amazing performance there, but we'll try. So yeah, can you begin by telling me a little bit about what you do and what your job title is, and explain a little bit about what you actually do in the music industry?
Yeah. So I am a music lawyer. So that mainly involves working with artists and songwriters. So we look after people and advise them on lots of different aspects of their career. So whenever they sign a contract, we'll be there to help get that agreed. And we also look after things when there are lawsuits as well, so when things get contentious.
Fantastic. And what might your job involve kind of day to day? Do you have a typical day in your job?
So it varies quite a lot, but the most common thing that we do is called drafting. So if you have a contract, so you'd be reading that on behalf of someone and giving different notes about how it should be changed, which maybe doesn't sound that interesting, but actually what you're doing a lot of the time is trying to get the best deal for your client, and you're looking after things in lots of different areas. So an example might be if an artist was going to have their song or appear in like a video game or in a TV show or film. So we'd be doing all of the different terms to work out how that would work. So protecting them, making sure they get as much money as possible. It changes from day to day.
So many people don't realise that law is such a huge part of music. So particularly in terms of like the ownership that you mentioned there, and things like copyright law and so on. We've seen huge cases in the media recently as well with Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, because it also affects things like streaming and AI now, doesn't it too?
Yeah, it does. How many people here vaguely know what copyright is? People know what copyright is? That is pretty impressive. So in case you don't know how it works, basically whenever you write something or record something, so if it's a song or a poem or an article or a film, you get a copyright in that, which means that people aren't meant to copy it without your permission. And fundamentally, that's how a lot of people make money in the music industry. It's copyright, which means that when your song is played on Spotify, that you can get money for that. There have been a lot of cases that you might have seen recently in the music industry where this has got quite, it's become quite big news. So one example was Taylor Swift. I don't know if people have seen that there's, she recorded her albums again as kind of Taylor's versions. People seen that? Yeah. So the reason for that was that she had given the copyrights when she first recorded the songs to someone. She then fell out with them and they'd been sold on, and so she didn't control them. So she might have been making a bit of money from them, but she didn't actually control how they could be used. So what she wanted to do was record the songs again, and because she recorded the songs again, she got a new copyright, which she could control herself, and she could make as much money as possible from it. And those are the kinds of things that we look after for various different clients.
Amazing. We were talking about AI as well and what the potential that could have for the music industry, which could potentially a huge part of your job soon as well.
Yeah, so that's something that I've been doing a lot of thinking about. I think a lot of musicians are really concerned that in maybe 5 years' time or even sooner, a lot of music on streaming platforms or on films will be made by AI, And the danger then is that musicians don't necessarily make a huge amount of money now, and AI could come along and take up some of the money which is going to musicians, and really kind of devalue what musicians are doing. From a legal perspective, it's incredibly complicated, because, as I was explaining, you get a copyright for when you make something yourself, and that's meant to protect people doing something artistic or musical. But obviously AI is quite different because it's a technology. Is it really creative when when you just put something into ChatGPT and it puts out a poem? Is that different creatively from when you've written a poem yourself? I don't know if people think that. Yeah, that's something that we're working on a lot.
It's really fascinating, and you've had an amazing journey to get here as well. So you kind of started off playing guitar as a child, you loved music, and you actually studied music at university, but then fell into law through doing a kind of law conversion course. So can you tell us a little bit more about your journey to what you do now?
Yeah, so I don't think I would have thought that I would become a lawyer maybe when I was at school in your shoes. I'm not sure I really knew what it involved or what it meant. I think I just thought it was people kind of being very angry with each other in court. Or if you've seen Suits, I think I probably thought it was that kind of thing, with people just shouting at each other. I studied music, wasn't necessarily sure what to do after university, and spoke to some people, and one of the pieces of advice I got was to become a lawyer. You might not know this, but to become a lawyer, there are a few different ways you can qualify. So one is you can do now an apprenticeship, so you don't actually have to go to university. You can study law, which is what most people probably know, or you can study another subject, and then after you've studied that other subject, you can do a year-long conversion course to get a law degree, which is what quite a lot of people do. And for me, it was an opportunity to qualify into something, to get a profession, and allow me sort of a route to work in the music industry. And if you work in the music industry, you'll discover there's actually a lot of lawyers. Yeah. Definitely.
And looking back on your career, what's some of the kind of best and worst advice that you've received? Is there some kind of advice that you've really cherished, and maybe some advice you'd rather forget?
That is a good question. One of the pieces of advice I got given at university when I was really keen to work in the music industry was from, I think, the head of a label. And they had said, if you want to work in the music industry, you should either become a lawyer or know loads of people already in the music industry. And I kind of thought, well, I don't already know a lot of people in the music industry because I'm 18 and I've never met anyone in the music industry before. So I think in the back of my mind, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should become a lawyer. And so that was half good advice because I've become a lawyer and I really enjoy it. But maybe also bad advice because it made me think, oh, there's no other route to being in the music industry.
Definitely. You talked there about, those connections, and that can be really hard when you're kind of coming into an industry without any connections at all. So when you started, how important was networking? So I guess, getting to know other people in the industry who do similar jobs to you.
I think it's really important. And I think when you're working kind of whatever you do, networking, so going out and meeting people and connecting with people, even if you might not necessarily work with them day to day, is really important, because even though we live in a very technological world where we're all sort of sitting behind screens, actually a lot of the people that you end up working with are people that you've met, and there's something about meeting people and knowing people that means you can trust them more and want to work with them. And I think in the music industry, people often end up doing many different things. So if you did want to work in the music industry, I think one of the big pieces of advice that I would have is try and get involved in as much stuff as possible. Like if there's a local radio thing that you can do, if you can write for a magazine about music, and even if you don't think, oh, I'm going to be a journalist or I'm going to be a radio host, it's still a good opportunity because you learn something and you also will meet people, and then often organically when you meet people, you meet other people, or they might be doing something else in 5 years' time and you stay connected. So I think it's really helpful.
Sending lots of emails as well is a good way, isn't it? Just kind of,
Yeah.
emailing lots of companies, getting connections in there. Did you do any of that at the start as well, or?
Not as much as I probably should have done.
But you got here.
It can be helpful, yeah.
So I guess looking back on your career, what have been some of the most enjoyable moments that you can think of?
I think that one of the things that I have really enjoyed is kind of teaching people about how music law works. So one of the projects I do is with Urban Lawyers, which is a charity, where we ran a education course for young artists, including young Athena, to teach them about how they can use the law and learn something about how the law works to protect themselves going forward. And a lot of young music artists sign up to not great deals when they're very young, and they might sign something because they're told, oh, this is what you got to sign, or this is the best thing for you. And then 10 years later, when they're really successful, they go, oh, why did I sign up to this 10 years ago? It was a terrible deal. And so what we are trying to do in that project is empower people to give them more knowledge. So that's something that I really enjoy, which is trying to explain how music law works to different artists.
Amazing. And I guess for all the young people in this room who are thinking, we might want to work in the music industry one day, what advice would you give to them if they're interested? What first steps might they take?
Yeah, I think getting involved in as much different stuff as possible. I think I played music, so I play guitar and sing, and I think that's been helpful. But I think I assume that just being in the music industry would be like, oh, you play music, why don't you have a job? And it doesn't really necessarily work like that. And getting involved with stuff which isn't just playing music, so whether it's doing sound engineering, or it could be literally anything, and getting involved in as much different stuff as possible, and you might be surprised at what you enjoy. I think when I was at school, I was slightly chaotic and enjoyed kind of performing and playing guitar, and didn't find it very easy to sit still. And so if you told me I was going to be a lawyer, I probably would have thought you were completely mad. But actually, when you try different things, often the thing which you really enjoy isn't what you thought when you started off. So get involved in as much different stuff as possible.
I think the networking thing is a really good bit of advice. I think getting out there very early on is the way. I know that was how I kind of ended up doing my job as a music journalist, just kind of emailing people, going in to get work experience, working on my school newspaper. And that's, I think, a really great sort of, way to do it. If you've got any questions for Jonathan, now is your chance to ask them.
How long did it both take you to get to where you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. Do you want to start, Jonathan?
So to get where I am today, it took me 32 years and 15 days, because my birthday was a couple of weeks ago. I think it can, to become a lawyer, it can take quite a while. So I did a 3-year degree and then did 2 more sort of 1-year degrees to qualify as a lawyer. So that's 5 years of studying after school. I also then had to do 2 years of training. So altogether, kind of 3 plus 4, which is 7. I think that's right. So it's quite a long time after school before starting work. There are ways, if you wanted to become a lawyer, to do that a bit quicker. So one of the things you can do is do an apprenticeship, which is usually our post A-levels apprenticeship rather than going to university. But it can definitely take a while to become a lawyer.
Yeah, and I guess with my job, like Jonathan, I did a 3-year degree. I studied English language and literature. And then when I graduated, I did a master's in journalism. And that was kind of training me, how to do reporting. I had to have legal training to be a journalist. So knowing how to do things like court reporting and, because obviously as a music journalist, I do get to write about a lot of court cases as well as kind of just your general news writing and interviewing and stuff. But I think, like Jonathan was saying, right from the get-go, I was doing quite a lot of experience, doing a lot of work experience at that point to sort of, learn my craft. So I'd worked for the school newspaper, writing about music, and then at university, I wrote for the student newspaper, and I became an editor for a section on that, which really was great training in particularly how to interview musicians and how to write about music. I did my 1 year sort of master's degree after my undergraduate degree, so that was 4 years. And then it was about another year of doing lots of work experience and internships at different newspapers. And I had a music blog, so I created my own little blog where I'd publish all my music writing. And I would have it on social media a lot, so I would be tweeting it out to people, I would be sharing it on Instagram, I'd be tagging bands in like articles that I wrote about them, and then they would share it. And that actually led to me getting a call from the Evening Standard in London, and they said, we've seen your writing, we'd love for you to write for us as a newspaper, would you like to? So I went along, did some, I had like a 3-month probation period, and then got my first time job in music writing from there. So I guess it was probably all in all about 4 and a bit years until, starting studying at university to getting my job. But I think certainly what really helped was doing all that kind of work experience at school, because that really, really impressed editors, the fact that I'd started quite young and that I was, writing all the time, really. So, I hope that answers your question.
I'm just wondering, you're a music lawyer. What skills, other than being a musician, do you think you need to be able to do your job really well?
That's a good question. I think there are 2 main parts of being a music lawyer. I think the first is to do with kind of relationships. When you're advising clients, if it's an artist or it could be their manager, or it could be a company, a lot of what you're doing is making sure that you have a good relationship with them. So that's the kind of networking things we discussed earlier, trying to find new clients, spending time speaking to them, explaining to them how things work. So those are kind of like, I guess, a lot of communication skills. And that's where maybe the side where I find the performance side from my background in music can be quite helpful. I think the other side is more the technical side. So that's me sitting with a document and a lot of reading and writing skills. I have quite a maths brain, and I think other people don't necessarily think like this, but I quite like contracts because I think of them a bit like a kind of massive equation, that when you have your terms and conditions when you sign up to something and it's hundreds of pages long and you don't read any of it. I quite like the process of going through all of that and working out how it works and how to catch out the other side and how to stop them doing you over. So that's the kind of side which I really enjoy. But maybe that's me liking reading terms and conditions, which is slightly odd, but yeah.
So can we please give it up for Jonathan one more time? Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you.
And can we also give another big round of applause, please, to young Athena for that amazing performance earlier on. So, just to finish, remember, whether you want to perform, design, manage or create, there's always a way to follow your passion in the creative industry. Keep dreaming big, stay curious, and who knows, years from now, maybe one of you will be up here inspiring the next generation. Thank you.